Thank you so much. Okay. All right, folks, here is, today is mini lecture time, so if I say anything that confuses you or you need a redux or an example or something, just throw your hand up in the air and I will call on you, okay? So basically for persuasion it's raining my eyes. Basically for persuasion speaking, you're using the same strategies that you would use in essay writing. So we've already picked topics and got you started on your research sources. Does everybody feel like you know what you're doing with that? Everybody feel like you know what you're doing with source finding, relevant sources? Okay, good. If you don't, you can always find me in my office, right? Or make an appointment. But so we're going to work on all kinds of things today having to do with research. So a couple things that aren't on the syllabus that I did want to hit. There's a logical fallacies presentation up here. So you can run through that on your own. It's a little prezzy. It's pretty self-explanatory, so I don't really want to take class time with it. But please make sure you go through that and then come to class Thursday with any questions you have, bless you. Because if I hear a logical fallacy in your presentation, I'm going to be morally and pedagogically required to note that. So,
what is a logical fallacy specifically?
Okay, a logical fallacy. Fallacy comes from the word for false.
Oh.
So it's an error in logic. Excuse me. It's an error in logic, and there are many kinds of ways that we can go wrong in our logical appeals, and sometimes we aren't aware of it. So it's very important, even if it's just a refresher for you, to go to that presentation, please, and run through it. I also wanted to take just a moment to remind you about the Oreo method or the sandwich method that you probably learned in English 101 or Writing 2. But it's about how to use sources responsibly, and it pertains in speaking just like it does, almost exactly like it does in writing. So this is the idea that you think of a hamburger or an Oreo cookie as a kind of sandwich, right? And your filling, or the hamburger or whatever, is the quotation itself. So it's the idea that you sandwich it with your own language to make sure it makes sense. So introduce the source itself or the main idea of the information that you're going to present to us, and then quote or paraphrase. What's a paraphrase? Taking what you're reading and putting it into your own words, and really your own words. Like if this is your quote from your source, you turn it upside down and don't look at it and write your paraphrase. Otherwise, you're plagiarizing. If you're not using direct quotes and explaining that this is a quotation, and you take the language directly, that's plagiarism, which we have to avoid. Okay. Use quotation marks only for verbatim language, exactly word for word. But again, if you're paraphrasing, don't paraphrase just a word or two. Completely reword the passage. And then you cite the source. I teach MLA because I teach language and literature. However, a number of you have science or social science related topics. Joe's working on the death penalty, for instance, so he's likely to find sources in APA documentation style. I'll go over both of those today so that you can choose the one that's most appropriate for your topic. If you have questions, again, come see me. So you cite the source. So if you have the quote, for instance, on a slide, you'd put the parenthetical citation right there on the slide. Or a paraphrase, or a statistic you got from one particular source, or a chart you took from a source, cite it right on the slide, okay? And finally, comment, be sure you integrate or work in that information from your source into your own presentation so it's logically supporting your ideas, and you're not just letting the writers you looked up speak for you. Does that make sense? Okay. Again, any questions, just throw your hand up and we'll stop. Oh, it's going to kick me out again. It's okay, we'll get right back in. That was the Oreo method, or the hamburger sandwich method, whatever you want to call it. These are the outline templates. So I want to start here because the first thing you need to do is choose one of my 2 recommended organizational strategies to organize your information. This is going to make it really clear and pretty certain that you're going to be persuading and not just informing. A persuasion speech, as we've said, requires a lot of information for support, but it just doesn't just stay there with, well, here's the information, make up your mind. No, your purpose for this speech is to move us in some way, to move us toward your position. And you can't expect a huge movement in 5 to 10 minutes, right? You can only expect a small movement. But if you earn our respect with your scholarly approach, your even temper, your good preparedness, then we're going to be more responsive to your perspective. All right, so here are the outline templates. So basically, I'm asking you to use one of these 2 organizational strategies. Monroe's motivated sequence is a 5-step sequence that's specifically designed to persuade people, ethically, of course. And then the problem solution, if you're just proposing a solution to a clear problem, and you have a solution that's been tested or at least tested in prototypes or case studies that you would like to propose be implemented more broadly at the campus or in the state or in the country, wherever, then the problem solution format might be appropriate for you. So let's take a look at those 2. Here's the Monroe sequence. What? Okay, good. Woo. Okay, scared me for a minute, but it's here. Okay. So this is the outline template for Monroe's motivated sequence. You always want to keep your thesis at the top of an outline just because you want to keep it foremost in your mind, because it's that thesis, that central statement of your claim that you're trying to prove that will drive the presentation of information, and even the information you select, of course. So, of course, you start with an introduction. The first step of Monroe is called need. It's called need. So we start fun with markers. Okay, so we start with need. That's 1. This is for Monroe. But you can download the entire template here, but you need to get this sequence in mind. The need or the problem step. Next is called satisfaction. How you would propose that we satisfy this need with your proposal. Okay, third is visualization. Wait, what? Oh, yes. Fifth is call to action. I missed something up here. Attention, of course. Number 1 is attention. 2 is need. 3 is satisfaction. 4 is visualization. And 5 is action. Sorry about that. Okay, so you start with an attention getter. You think of a way to get our attention. It might be with a quotation. It might be with a question, a rhetorical question in which you try to get us to imagine what it's like to go through a certain problem, to be homeless, to be on death row, to have a medical need that's not met, whatever your topic is. You're going to introduce the topic and motivate the audience, establish credibility by suggesting, that you've got your sources here, preview your main points, and provide your thesis statement. So the preview statement is what you did in the demonstration speech when you said, I will show you how to make a birdhouse in 4 steps, right? You give the listeners something to listen for. Some of you did that, some of you didn't think to do that, but it's more effective if you do. And this is one of the things that's actually different from an essay. In an essay, you don't want to tell us what's coming up. You just want to give us the thesis. But in a speech, you do both because listeners have to focus attention to be able to follow a complex argument. All right, so need, you develop that by describing the need, explaining the importance of the problem, describing what could happen if the problem is not solved. And remember, you're splicing in source support throughout the entire speech, wherever it's needed, and not source by source. If you've ever written a research paper like that, that's a bad way to do it. It should be bit by bit, whatever supports your argument. That's why you have to really study your sources and know where the information is that will support each section of your argument. All right, and then you've got, remember transitions. Just like you had to have transitions in the, did you have a question? Emma? No? Okay. It's fine if you do, don't hesitate. Remember transitions like you needed in the demo speech between steps. Satisfaction step is where you describe your plan or your idea or the proposal or whatever it is that you're trying to persuade us to believe or do differently than we do now. And explain why that'll work. Okay? And next, and it might be just reasons at this point. The visualization step is typically, in my experience watching my students work with Monroe, sometimes this is weak. This is where you can really get creative and make it vivid. Drive your point home with specifics. Describe what results your audience can experience if your plan is adopted. And you can go to the case studies. You can go to the interviews with people who've had this special treatment or this, administered a state where this law is enacted or whatever, and can testify to its efficacy. Come on in. Can testify to the fact that it works, all right? So that's the visualization step, and then you describe the benefits that relate to your audience, describe the consequences that will affect your audience, and state your call to action, which is the final step. So in your conclusion, the emphasis is calling on us, the audience, to do something either concrete or abstract. It might be in our attitudes, in the way we treat people. It might be in our actions, what we need to communicate to our senators and our congressmen. It might be something we can do hands-on on campus, whatever fits your topic, all right? Signal the ending, restate the importance of the problem, reemphasize the call to action step, and don't do these word for word, don't verbatim repeat yourself. And give us some kind of an ending that we can sink our teeth into. What is that noise? Okay. All right. So does this make sense? The 5 steps are attention, need, satisfaction, visualization, and action. It's a really solid structure because it really gears your entire speech toward persuasion. Questions? We're doing outline templates. So we're talking about this. You need to choose either Monroe's motivated sequence or problem solution as the format for your outline and your delivery of the persuasion speech. It's all in week 6 because you missed the first part. I'm also video recording, so I will post this to week 6 as well. Yes?
My Brightspace hasn't been working. Is that like the only me thing? Or that's like everyone?
I'm sorry, what?
My Brightspace hasn't been working. Is that like the only me thing?
It is a you thing. No, I mean your equipment or whatever. So I would, Danielle, I would go to the help desk in the center of the library. It is working. I'm on there regularly and check for questions or problems. So please go there with your laptop or whatever you're using, and they can help troubleshoot. Thank you. That's the word. Woo! Went blank for a second. Troubleshoot with you. And if they can't help you, you can always go to the SUNY help desk, and that's referenced in the help section on Brightspace and also the Brightspace homepage. There's links straight to it, or you can even Google SUNY help desk, and you can call or email, and they can talk you through fixes for issues you're having. Okay? All right. Any other questions? Okay, let's go to problem solution then. So again, if you have a clear, straightforward problem and you just want to present the solution, you don't think you necessarily need all these steps to do it, then you might be game for the problem solution format. I'm going to enlarge this again. Again, it's a good idea to put your thesis at the top so you just keep it foremost in your mind what you're doing. And the first part of this will look familiar. You always want to start with a good attention getter, be it a quote, a hypothetical case, a rhetorical question for the audience, something to grab our attention. Maybe a shocking statistic that we're not likely to be aware of that really brings awareness about the problem. All right, and a statement of significance, why your problem, why we should care about this problem. It might be a big one, it might be a small one, but think of a way to engage the audience. State your thesis. In both types of organizational patterns, an explicit expression of the thesis is important. We need to know up front what you're arguing. Okay? And then a preview statement. Remember, a preview statement looks forward to and tells the audience what kinds of material you're going to present. First I'll show the scope of the problem, then I'll take you to Denver, where my solution has been piloted very successfully, and however, whatever steps you need to present here. And then transition. Then we get to the body of the problem solution format. Of course, it's going to have two main sections, the problem and the solution. In the problem, your first main point, the name of your problem, what you would call it, how we would understand it. A is the first subpoint, second subpoint, and so forth, like any outline. Transition into the solution. Give it a kind of name or phrase so we can understand your concept of the solution. Maybe it already has a name, maybe it doesn't. And you can create one and explain that this is, I like to call this the whatever solution, so that we can listen with that understanding, that shared terminology. And then you develop that and give us a conclusion at the end. In both types of organizational structures, you're going to be using this to help you present what you're going to say, which will be again on note cards, because what you're going to do for the audience is present a visual slideshow. That could be on Google Slides, it could be on Prezi, it could be on PowerPoint, I don't care. But we'll get to the details of how to do a really good one as opposed to a mediocre one later. Not today, but we will cover that for sure. There are tips and tricks I can give you to make your visuals stand out and really help the audience. The purpose of them is to assist the audience in understanding the complex material in a short period of time. But it's not supposed to take attention away from you. So it can't be language heavy, etc., etc. So I'll give you some examples and we'll talk about that later. Any question about the problem solution format? No? Okay. How many of you think that Monroe's motivated sequence will be the best choice for your topic? Put them up high. Okay. So the rest of you are with problem solution? Or if you're not sure, do this.
Actually, yeah, not sure.
Okay. All right. All right. If you're not sure, can we talk about it? Is that okay? No shame in not being sure. There is no shame in that. I'm not shaming anyone. Let me be clear about that. Can I ask you what your topic is again? Because I know you told us all.
Is why the U.S. should adopt the metric system.
Oh, yes. Why the U.S. should adopt the metric system. Okay. What do you guys think? Which approach do you think would convince you better? I'm thinking that too. I'm thinking Monroe's because you're an immigrant and we welcome you here and I love your perspective and think it's actually probably very wise. But most Americans don't think we have a problem without the metric system. So problem solution would be a problem. Does that make sense? So for that reason, you'd probably be more persuasive with Monroe's. Okay, good. Others who aren't sure. Yeah,
Mine was, let's see, gun violence and gun rights. Like, do the restrictions like actually do anything to prevent things, or are they just like completely pointless?
Okay, so you don't have a thesis yet. You're looking into the research.
Yeah, like do gun restrictions kind of like what you can own? Do they prevent any mass shootings at all, or do they not, and are therefore kind of pointless?
Okay, good. That's a great question. I don't know.
I personally think that they don't reduce shootings at all.
Okay, I'd have to look at the research to make up my mind on that, but you're doing the research, so I respect your opinion. What do you think would work better with what you know right now?
I have no idea.
Do you have a solution to propose? If you think the laws don't work, do you have an alternative solution to the problem of gun
Not really.
violence?
It might just be a problem that can't be solved, or it could be that there's another cause to the problem that there might be a solution.
Okay, then it doesn't sound like you can use problem solution because there's not a clear-cut solution to the problem.
You guys can tell I am very pro Second Amendment.
That's okay. That's all right as long as you have the support for it. You know, whatever your position on any issue, as long as you can support it, I can help you. If you can't support it with evidence, might need to definitely need to revisit it. So I would say Monroe's, Tom.
Sure.
Okay? Because it's a very complex topic, doesn't have one single answer, but it might have a lot of information and things we can think about. So you might end up arguing for something like more responsible gun ownership programs, or better enforcement of the regulations that we do have on
Or the other problem,
gun
which
safety.
is like that cause change, which is mental health, like better mental health counseling.
Exactly. And so it's a multi-pronged issue, and it's going to require multi-pronged solutions. I agree with you. It's very complex. So definitely Monroe for you. Others? Donnell? You're doing college sports and
Oh, I
recruitment.
agree.
No, go ahead.
Not 'cause, like, I was like, so, you know, I woke in late, right? I was confused what was going on, but now I know what's going on, so I'm good.
Okay, do you know which approach would be better for your topic?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay, now you're working on college basketball recruitment, and what's your persuasive angle on that?
A lot of angles.
You're not sure yet. Did you, okay, you
Oh,
need
there's
to,
a rule, I believe there's a rule in
Okay.
certain states where you can't recruit out of the state. Something like that.
you can or can't?
Can't.
Can't. In
I feel
some
like-
states?
Yeah, I feel like that should be changed because there's kids that have that are like very talented, stuff like that, good grades, and they're not getting looked at because they are like live in a certain state.
Okay, okay, interesting. Of course, New York, we can recruit from wherever, right?
Yeah.
But there are some states that can't. That's interesting. So we're talking about the publicly funded colleges, and we're talking about state laws that prohibit their searching out of state for college basketball athletes. Okay, so it sounds like you might be able to use a problem solution format for that. You know, the solution would be to change the laws. Your challenge as a researcher would be, I'm thinking off the top of my head here, you guys help me out. You know more about this than I do. I'm thinking off the top of my head that you might want to find out some statistics for, you know, how well teams are doing in publicly funded colleges. You might keep looking at 2-year colleges since we're at one right now, or you might be looking at 4-year, I don't know. How well are those teams doing that recruit out of state as opposed to those that don't? That might be a factor. You might find some other statistics with how prevalent is out-of-state recruitment. And your problem is bigger if it's not prevalent. Your solution is bigger if it is prevalent. Does that make sense? Okay, yeah.
I take it back though. It's actually high school. Now that I think about it.
Are you looking at high school?
It's high school. It's Vegas actually. Vegas is one of the states that does that. If you don't live in Vegas, you can't like say how I live in New York. You can't go to Vegas, and basically they can't recruit you to come play ball. Like you have to transfer to school as if like, oh, you're a regular student.
Well, but that's true of all high schools. As far as I know, I mean, high schools are local. Wait, you're saying no?
Nah, nah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know
Vegas
that.
is one of those for a fact.
Oh, see, I know nothing about this. Okay, I'm interested to see what you find out.
Yeah, I'm about to cook this one up.
Okay. Other people feeling iffy? Were you feeling iffy, Joe? No. Lacey?
I thought I was gonna use Monroe, but mine is like relicensing, like retesting the driver's program for like 65.
Okay, retesting drivers who are 65 and older, and you were thinking about Monroe's?
Yeah, because I feel like it's like,
That
it's
could
like
work.
a lot of different perspectives on it. Because I mean, in a way, people can look at it as like kind of ageist, but it's not. But I feel like there's a lot of different perspectives on that. So.
There are, yeah, there are. But yeah, if you have the data to back that up, you could use either one.
Okay.
I mean, you'd have to prove it's a problem. If you can
Yeah.
prove that it's a problem, it might be easier with problem solution. But then again, where there may be some resistance, you might want to go with Monroe.
Okay.
I don't know that anybody in the room would be resistant to that. I don't know. Another thing you all can do, if you like, is to poll your peers in this classroom. So if you need to poll each other on your particular issue, let me know, and we'll take 10 minutes out and do all the polls, and you'll have at least a general idea of your specific audience, which is important whenever possible to get the demographics of the audience you'll be addressing. Because you wouldn't address the flower club the same way you would the, another group, right? Okay, so others need help deciding on a strategy? Okay. Then I'm gonna give you 10 minutes. We can turn this video off if you could turn that off for a minute. I'm gonna give you 10 minutes to get started on a rough out.